Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon's Stuff. Today we're taking a look at this knife, the Civivi Lazar, designed by Elijah Isham. But before we get into that, I have a little, correction? I don't know, whatever. Anyways, in the review of the Civivi Hadros, why am I zoomed so close in? There we go. I said I'd post pictures of it disassembled, which I forgot to do. I realized that after I uploaded the video, and I thought about re-editing, taking that video down and re-editing it and putting up a new one, but screw that. So no, I'm just going to make the correction here, because that's the way we do things on this channel. Anyways, here's the picture of it taken apart. Nothing weird happened. It went apart pretty well, except for the only weird thing that happened was while I was unscrewing the pivot, the C came out of the tube, which doesn't typically happen with Civivis. I'll throw up a picture of that. Usually the C stays inside the tube and you have the end cap here come out as a screw. But anyways, that happened. But yeah, went apart real well. Went together pretty good. So, cool. Now on to the actual subject of today's review. Let's take a blade length measurement. We're coming in, exactly 3.5 inches, like on the dot. So cool. Let's go ahead and jump into our size comparisons. As always, you guys know how it is. I mean, I don't even think I need to introduce my size comparisons anymore. Just throw them up here and you guys can just look at them. And then again, if you've been a watcher of the channel, you know the order we do things in. Not a huge, almost identical in length to a bug out, but pretty different in a lot of other regards. Now let's go ahead and do our Civivis. There's the Praxis. There's the Elementum. Cool. And we'll compare it against a couple of other Civivis, just because I always do that. And which wacky Civivis am I going to compare it against? Well, we already have the Hadros out here, so might as well compare it against the Hadros. Hadros. Why did I say Hadros? Gosh, if you watched the review of that, I feel so ashamed of myself. Anyways, and against the McKenna, which we will be bringing out later for obvious reasons that we'll get into. Regions? Is that what I said? Sometimes I wonder if English is really my first language, because I don't speak it very well. Anyways, what are we looking at here in terms of materials? Well, we have a trailing point blade made out of tin. Focus on that camera. There we go. Trailing point blade made out of 10CR15 COMOV. So we can zoom in there on the steel marking. Focus camera, I know it's tiny, but there we go. 10CR15 COMOV, which is basically Chinese VG10. G10 scales with this nice purple color. I will say I'm a big fan of that. G10 backspacer. I like backspacers, if they're just little tiny guys like that. Steel pocket clip. Ugh. Ceramic ball bearings in a bronze cage, and then steel liner lock. Pretty much the standard materials for a bunch of Civivis, but this knife does take a pretty unique form. So let's go ahead and let's go to the cutting footage. I'll be right back. Civivi Lazar. Boy, I've done a lot of Civivis today. I'm doing, obviously the way my reviews work is I carry the knife for a while, kind of get used to it, and then I also like to do specific little cuts, and I film those to put in the review. So I've been filming a lot of review cutting, as I call it today, and it's been a lot of Civivis. Anyways, this Civivi is kind of different from the others. Let's talk about ergos. Good ergos. This trailing point blade I'm not a big fan of trailing points or Persians, whatever you want to call them. However, the way this handle is shaped makes this blade a lot more like a drop point than a trailing point. So I like that a whole lot. Do wish that there was some jimping up here, but I mean, the spine is pretty soft. The handle itself is nice and comfortable for this size of a knife, but this clip, look how tall that clip is. I've talked about this ad nauseum, but come on, Civivi. This clip sucks. Stop using it, especially on thin, narrow knives. No, it's not okay. We can't keep letting them get away with it. The action, it's a front flipper, but you can do a lot of cool stuff with this. For example, whoops, if you keep this finger out of the way, you can flick it like that. You can get in the hole and flick it. You can thumb flick it. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And if you're particularly skilled, you can actually grab the lock face and... come on, Gideon. Don't make yourself look like an idiot. It's going to happen anyways. There, you can flick it out like that. Whoops, sorry about that. So yeah, action, really good. No complaints at all. How's it carry? Let's talk about the carry next. Super skinny knife. The Civivi clip, while it's a pain in the butt in the hand, it does go in the pocket pretty nice. So let's take a look at that. Crotch cam. Yeah, this knife tucks away really nicely in the back of your pocket. No flipper tab or anything. Really, really cool. Let's do some slicing. Yeah, here it is. Really, really nice. It's a flat grind 10CR15 COMOV steel, which I'm actually kind of getting a little bit kind of fond of from Civivi. It's basically just VG10, but it's a good steel. It's a good steel. It's very, very good. This blade is, if I remember right, this is about 13 thousandths behind the edge. Very, very thin, very pokey. The correct number will be on the table. Let's grab my rope here. There we go. Woo. Woo. Wow, that is struggling to get in there, isn't it? Wow. Yeah, it's the blade shape. The rope was just sliding off the end. Well, that's not very fun. Alright, let's get down a little bit lower. See how it does for this. Whew. Now, I have been using this knife a little bit. Maybe it's already dull. No, it doesn't feel like it. Huh. There's just that blade shape. Struggling to get power into that push. Okay. Let's grab our pool noodle. Alright, let's go back to the table and talk about it. Alrighty. Let's get into the nitty-gritty on the Civivi Lazar. So, let's start with what I like, as always. And the first thing I like is this purple G10. Purple G10 is just really cool. Like, I got this knife, and you can go check out the unboxing. I did it with Austin, and both of us were really, really impressed with this purple G10. I mean, it's just purple, but it looks nice. I like purple G10. So, yeah, purple is good. I also do like how they did these scales. You can see how kind of like on the McKenna, there's kind of this double texturing on the G10. You have kind of these flatter, smooth surfaces here, and then you have like the more standard Civivi texturing through there. I've said before that I'm not a big fan of Civivi's G10. And I'm not, it does feel a little bit plasticky and cheap, but this helps it feel a little bit nicer. And I always like when companies, take the time to make interesting milling marks in their G10 instead of just leaving it, kind of flat and plain. So I like that. I like the way they did this handle quite a bit. The way they did this G10 is pretty nice, in my opinion. Next thing, the action is really nice. So it's a front flipper. It's so smooth. So smooth. And it's just broken in even better as time's gone on. Just very smooth. Front flippers aren't my typical favorite deploying method to carry on an EDC knife, but as far as fidgeting goes, it's really good. And this knife has such an insane action that you can deploy it in a bunch of different ways. I showed this off in the cutting footage, but one way that I was deploying this knife a lot was just with the middle finger flick, because it's really easy to do. You can also, I also thumb flicked it quite a bit, because that's also easy to do. You can spidey flick it in the hole if you really want to. That's a little bit harder to do. And then, of course, you can do the stupid little flip off of the lock face, which, whatever. Next thing, I like that it has external stop pins. And yes, these are external stop pins since they are part of the blade. You can see them moving in there. An internal stop pin would be something that's affixed on the liners and scales that the blade moves around. These are external. Focus up there, camera. There we go. So you can see that. I think that all front flippers should have external or internal stop pins. I don't know why. It's just something that I prefer to see in my front flippers. And I just like the look of internal or external stop pins. Well, external stop pins as well. Plus, they do give good lockup, and the lockup on this knife is very solid. So that's nice. I like seeing that. Next thing, the fit and finish on this knife was very good out of the box, like most Civivis. You like to see that. I like this little backspacer here. I like backspacers. I'm a backspacer guy, and I don't know, even a little tiny one like this. I just like backspacers. It's one of those things like, I also like the look of external stop pins. Besides just functionally, I just like the way they look. I like the way backspacers look. They're just neat to me. Next thing, the hardware on this knife is minimal. You have the pivot and then one body screw, plus the clip screws. We'll get into that a little bit later, but cool. And let me grab my tools while we're talking about hardware. Where's my T8? There's a T8 bit. Pivot is T8, and this body screw is also a T8. So really, really nice. Alrighty. Next thing I like is the way they did the front flipper. So I'm putting this separate to the action, just because the action's more to do with the construction of the pivot. This is about actuating the deployment method. But anyways, I like the way they did this front flipper. When I first saw pictures of this knife, I wasn't super excited because it looked like it was just a shelf that came out. And I was like, ugh. Because sometimes there's certain front flippers that just aren't as usable as others. They're a little more awkward to use. They did this one nicely. You can see the jimping up here is what makes it nice. The jimping goes around the top instead of just stopping right here, which a lot of front flippers do. And that gives you great purchase on the flipper tab as you go to do it. Does this knife pass the over-the-top flip test? Yes, it does. Although I've never deployed a front flipper like that in EDC usage, so whatever. Yeah, pretty cool. Next thing, the blade. We'll come back to this, but the very, very thin. It's a flat grind, very thin grind like Civivi always does. It's a good performer. The 10CR steel is a steel that I actually like quite a bit, especially in a world where Civivi is starting to use Nitro V, which I hate Civivi's Nitro V. I hate it. I like Civivi's Tin CR. It's basically VG tin. And there's nothing wrong with VG tin, especially at the price point that they're asking for these knives. And we'll talk about the price point a little bit later. But yeah, it's a good performing steel. Very stainless, holds an edge. I mean, exactly the way that you'd want your knife to hold an edge for just regular EDC. And especially since this knife I definitely consider to be a lighter use EDC, Tin CR will do the job just fine. Yeah, VG10 is a good steel. It really is. It's not one of my favorites, although I will say the Tin CR from Civivi is becoming one of my favorite of Civivi's steels. But at a good price, VG10 is a great steel. Spyderco overcharges for it, which makes it not so great. And also Spyderco's VG10 just, in my opinion, is not as good as other companies' VG10. But anyways, this is good. I like that. Lockup is pretty good for a knife like that's, again, not super hard use. This is designed by Elijah Isham. There's his maker's mark. And that brings us to my favorite part about this knife, and that's that it just is a very unique looking knife. I mean, it just screams Elijah Isham, but it's very different from other knives in Civivi's lineup. And I like that. It's a unique knife. It definitely has a presence. It makes me smile just looking at, like, you know, this is kind of a goofy looking knife, but you know what? It works, and I like that. It is kind of goofy looking, but it also looks good, and I like the way it looks. And again, it just stands out, so that's always nice. The last thing that I like are the ergos. Or actually, we'll say the last thing I like is the way the handle is shaped. I do like the way the handle is shaped. This is a trailing point blade, which isn't usually my favorite type of blade. And it's not like an aggressive trailing point. It's not like a big swoopy Persian or anything. But the way this handle, you can see the handle has kind of a curve. It kind of makes this blade feel a little bit more like a drop point when you're using it. Not exactly like a drop point, but it makes it feel a little less like a trailing point. And I like that. And the handle is shaped well. For such a thin knife, the curve of the handle, you know, this little hump here, it goes where you want it to go. And that's really, really nice. So, like the handle. And one more thing, the pocket clip works good in and out of the pocket. It is reversible, but it's Civivi's pocket clip. And you guys know how I feel about that. So let's get right into what I don't like about this knife. First thing, Civivi, please stop with this pocket clip, especially on these thin knives. Look how tall that clip is. Look how pointy that is. This clip does ruin the ergonomics of this knife. I mean, look at that. Look where that just presses into my hand in all the wrong places. No, it's just, like right now I'm not even putting a whole lot of pressure on the grip, and I'm feeling hot spots. Like, hot. Not, you know, I'm not like, yeah, I could see this being a hot spot if I really squeeze down. No, I'm not even squeezing and it feels hot. So, the pocket clip's terrible. Next thing, I really don't like when Civivi uses one of the pocket clip screws as a body screw, because here's the thing. T8 hardware is superior to T6 hardware. It strips out less readily, and, you know, it's just nicer to deal with. So a lot of people don't like to deal with T6s. Plus, if you're going to have T8s on the body and the pivot, it's nice to just have one driver to disassemble your knife instead of having to switch off. Here's the thing. These pocket clip screws are T6, and if you flip the screws or the pocket clip over here, you have to take this T8 screw and put it here and take both the T6s and put them there. So here's the thing I really don't like. You have to take the clip off to disassemble the knife. And here's why. You can't get into the pivot from this side. So you flip it over, take that out, zoop, and then you have to get your T6 and work with these two T6 screws and get the knife apart to do disassembly. I'm not talking about, you know, I take my knives completely apart a lot when I'm, you know, wanting to modify them or something. But for just basic maintenance, when you just want to get it apart, get the blade out, you have to mess with T6s and T8s, and I'm just not a big fan of that. So, yeah, I really don't like when they use the clip screw as a body screw. Next, let's talk about the blade. I have some issues with the blade. So, first of all, trailing points just really aren't that useful. You can see in the cutting footage I was doing, the rope tended to just slip off and over, you know, whatever. I was doing a lot of opening like blister packs with this, and you just have to, you know, arrange your hand differently when you're trying to puncture that stuff. And instead of like on, let's take this knife since I have it here, for example. If I have a blister pack in front of me, poke in the tip and then draw down. With this knife, you can't really do that. You have to poke in the tip like this since it's so far up. And so what I would do is I would just poke in the tip and then push. But not my favorite blade. Some people might really like it. For breaking down cardboard and stuff, it works just fine as long as you can stay in your cut. So yeah, not too bad. The thing about this the thing about the blade that I really don't like though is the finish on it. Let's get in here close and personal. Okay, can you see those marks on the blade? See them better here. Yeah, there's some deep ones there, and then you can see like those scratches there. So this is what Civivi calls a stonewash finish, and they have done this finish a lot recently. You have a black version of it here on the Baby Banter. The Civivi bow had this exact same finish. You can go check out that video. Technically, I think the riffle has the same finish. Although, yeah, I don't know. But, they call it a stonewash. It does not function like it does not work like any stonewash I've ever used. And I love stonewashes. I think a stonewash finish blade is amazing because it helps hide wear. This does not hide wear at all. And this is light duty wear. And no, these are not smudges. You can see that I cannot rub that off. Even with, I mean, let's get some alcohol out here just a second while I soak this little rag. Okay, we're back with our alcohol soaked rag. And yeah, those are scratches. It kind of looks like a stonewash up close. I mean, if we get really close, it kind of looks like a stonewash, but it's so light. Go over here where you can see those other marks real good. And just all kinds of little scratches and marks and stuff in the blade, which with a stonewash, it's supposed to hide that, but it's not hiding it at all. It's making it very noticeable. Like these are minor little scratches. I mean, I have scratches like that all over a bunch of my EDC knives. You know, not my hard use knives, but my EDC knives. However, a lot of them are stonewashed and they hide better, or even satin finishes. I just don't like this finish. I don't even think it's really a real stonewash. If it is, it's so light. And it's not like Civivi doesn't know how to do stonewashes. Let's pull out an older knife. This is the Mastodon. Look at this. Focus. That's going to reflect my lights. But you can look at that. That is an actual stonewash. And it's a much better stonewash. And I've even cleaned this blade up a little bit. But I have done a lot of chopping and abusive testing with this knife. I don't think the video about that is out yet. But it's held up really well. This is a good stonewash. I mean, it's not as heavy as something like the, like the Cold Steel 4MAX Scout. This is a beautiful stonewash. I love this stonewash so much. And yeah, mine is a pretty dirty and battered because you guys know what this knife has been through. But this is a absolutely excellent stonewash. Love that one. I think this knife would have been a lot better with a satin or a Stonewash. Whoops. Dropped my 4MAX scout all over the place. Or a Stonewash similar to, here's another great Stonewash on the CJRB small feldspar. This is a much better stonewashing. See how it has a little bit of reflectivity. You can see kind of the roughness. And yeah, this knife has marks for sure. But in fact, that mark right there might actually be something I can just take off with my alcohol wipe. But much better stonewash. And I mean, it just looks better too, besides functioning better. And this kind of looks like a bead blast, honestly. That I think, but I don't know. It like scratches off. It takes marks really, really bad. It's not my favorite finish on a blade. And yeah, I'm gonna harp about it a lot. I harped about it on the bow quite a bit. I do not like this blade finish at all. And I'll restate again, I didn't like do anything abusive with this knife. I just EDC'd it. I mean, I just EDC'd it, and I'm a college student in the city, cutting cardboard, opening packages, tape. I think the hardest thing I cut with this was some celery. I mean, it just took marks like crazy. So, you know, who knows? But we're gonna stop messing around with that. Next thing, let's go back to the clip for a second. It's not sunk into the scale, which means you can get clip wiggle. Right now it's actually screwed down pretty good. There's no clip wiggle, so that's nice. Access to the liner is okay. Not perfect, but it's really not that bad, honestly. I can get in there really good. The thing with the lock bar that is a little bit worse is I've actually developed a little bit of lock stick on this guy. Let's see if you guys can see and or hear that. Hold it. Focus. Focus. Anyways, it's not bad lock stick, but it's definitely there a little bit. So, not a huge fan of that. All right. There we go. So, that's about all the negative. Oh, actually, one more thing about the blade. This is something that people were talking to me about that I never really paid that much attention to, and it was how small Civivi's edge bevels are. And honestly, I know that, you know, laying back your edge, you know, making your edge bevel a little bit bigger does make your knife perform better. And basically all my Civivis that I keep around and use, they do eventually get a bigger edge bevel. Like here's my my baby Banter. You can see how much bigger the edge bevel is because I sharpened this one to 17 degrees. And this knife, honestly, I noticed some issues with the little tiny edge bevel. For example, like I said, just the cutting issues that it had. I don't know. I felt like this knife wasn't performing as good as it could have, and that might have been because of the tiny edge. But I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to say too much about that. For now, I think we should just go into my final conclusions. My final conclusions are this. I like this knife as just kind of what it represents, a very unique design. Am I going to be EDCing a knife like this forever? No. No, in fact, I don't really think this knife... I said in my review of the Hadros, crap. That... I'm an idiot. That, this is a very task-specific EDC knife, and I'm not going to EDC it everywhere, but when I have to do jobs that involve a lot of utility cuts, this is my go-to knife. This knife, I can't think of anything specific that it excels at. And in a lot of ways, this trailing point blade is not the first thing I'm going to go to. So, really, I don't see any advantage of this knife over any other knife. The other thing is, this is kind of replacing the Civivi McKenna. This is discontinued now, and I think that's a terrible shame. Because the McKenna is a great knife, and in fact, it's a better knife than Lazar. Lazar is bigger. Oh, one thing about Lazar that I don't like is the jimping should have come out further. But the spine is pretty soft, so whatever. Anyways, the McKenna is a far more useful knife. You can do your utility cuts. It's a nice small size. It's just a better shaped blade. I don't think this is a worthy successor to the McKenna, honestly. If they made a McKenna in this size, we'd be talking. But as it is, I don't think this is a good replacement for a really excellent knife. So, what would I change about this knife? Pocket clip. First thing, I talked about this with a lot of Civivis. Get rid of that stupid pocket clip. I hate that clip. And I changed the blade finish, honestly, because it's... What is that on the blade? Okay, I guess it's nothing. I thought I saw some rust, but I think it was just the way the light was shining off the blade from my perspective. Anyways, I would definitely change this finish, for sure. Not a big fan of this finish at all. And those are the two biggest issues with this knife. Change the finish, change the pocket clip, because the knife otherwise is very well designed. I can tell that Elijah Isham designed this knife to fit very well in the hand, but the pocket clip just ruins it. It just ruins it. So that's a big shame. Change the pocket clip, change the blade finish. What do I like about the knife? I like the design. It's a very unique looking knife. It's a very fidget friendly knife. So yeah, that's what I like about the knife. Is this going... Again, it comes back to the question for me. Does this do anything for me that 100 other knives can't do? And the answer is no. I don't think the trailing point blade is the best for EDC. And, you know, I don't think it's the best here. What's the price on this guy? Let me look that up real quick. $59.50. I think that's a fine price here for the materials, you know, $60. I think it's fine. I think it would be better at $55, but hey, we all want things cheaper. Civivi has been getting a little more expensive for some of their knives, so, you know, I think this one is priced pretty well. Can I recommend this knife? If you just love trailing point blades and front flippers and stuff, and I mean, one pro to this knife that I didn't mention is that it does carry pretty well. So it's a fairly light knife and has a nice slim profile. So if you want something that's easy to carry but still gives you a full, you know, 3.5-inch blade, maybe. If you're looking for a fidget knife, sure. If you love Elijah Isham's designs, which I do, there you go. This is a great collection piece. But as far as just pure usability, I'm not sure I can recommend this. Honestly, I'm really not sure I can, which is a shame. I mean, other than that, it's a Civivi, it's well made. If you're looking at it and you're in love and you know exactly what you're going to use it for, go ahead and get it. I'm not going to stop you. It's a good knife. But it just does have some issues that, for me, are reoccurring themes with Civivi. We'll talk about, you know, the blade finish and this pocket clip. I do not like that. Those two things are really starting to bother me on a lot of Civivis. In fact, I have another Civivi knife with this finish that I'm getting ready to review. Let me grab it real quick. This is the Imperium. Has the same kind of faux stonewash, and this is a Nitro V, which is a steel I hate from Civivi. And you can see here, focus. This knife is developing the same problems of getting big scratches on it. You can see that big scratch there if the light doesn't wash it out. There's a big scratch, it goes like that. So, not a big fan of that finish. Hate the clip that Civivi's been using. I mean, look at this. Civivi, go back to this clip on the McKenna. McKenna is a tiny knife, but it feels so much better in the hand because this clip is better. Has a more gradual sloped down. It's not as tall. It's squared off, which means your hand has more area to land on. Makes it a lot better in the hand than this monstrosity. Hate this clip. I cannot stress that enough. But yeah. So where's my opinions on the Civivi Lazar? And by the way, the name Lazar. I was thinking, I'm like, oh, I'm going to make a thumbnail for this video. I like to put cool things in my thumbnails sometimes. And I was thinking, Lazar. That kind of reminds me of Lazarus. Kind of reminds me of, stuff like that. I wonder what this is named after. I know Isham has named some of his designs in the past after spaceships from certain video games and franchises and stuff. And I was like, well, maybe it comes from that. So I Googled Lazar, and all I could find was that it's a surname and also a name given to people who are, what's the exact term that Wikipedia used? Or the dictionary? Yeah, let me look at this. A poor and deceased person, especially one afflicted by a feared contagious disease, such as leprosy. And so, luckily this knife is not that bad. I mean, if I had to be honest, I'd take the Civivi bow and rename it the Lazar. Ooh, burn! But, yeah, I guess I'm not a big fan of the name. However, Elijah, I think he just names his knives after words that he thinks are cool in a lot of ways. In fact, I know that the Megatherium from Kaiser was named that way. He just came up with a word and was like, oh, that's pretty cool, and plugged into Google and found out that it's a prehistoric land sloth, which I thought was hilarious because when I first heard the Kaiser Megatherium, of course, me being a paleontology nut, I knew what a Megatherium was. But he didn't, and I just find that hilarious. So, yeah. Anyways, this is getting rambly. My final conclusion on this knife, it has a lot of the negatives that I associate a lot of Civivis as having. It's a very interesting design from Elijah Isham. Whether you buy this or not is up to you. For me, I'm not going to give this knife a high recommend. As an EDC tool. As a collecting item and fidget piece, yeah, go for it. But as an EDC tool, this knife gets a pass from me. So, anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave it a like down below and comment. What do you think about this knife? Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.